Hey y'all, this is Audra Hicks, the Simply Home, your Tennessee Realtor. And again, I'm back with my friend
Dellana Lowhorn with Bell Law Settlement Services.
You say it so business-like here,
I can't help it. It's just, I think it's that you practice it, so when you go to meetings, you're like, hi, I'm Dellana Lowhorn with Bell Law Settlement Services.
I know,
People
right?
say that about me, though. They're like,
they're funny.
You're relaxed 1 minute, and then when you get in the closing room, it's like flipping a light switch. And I'm like, well, because it's my job.
I know, because you're not all business.
Right.
But what are we going to talk about today, then?
Today, I want to talk about how people bring funds to closings.
Which is very important.
When funds are dispersed.
Okay.
Because that's, your number one question, I think, from buyers is, how much do I got to bring to closing?
Okay.
And how do I get it to the closing company?
Okay. So stay tuned, because I put the real in real estate. Okay, so now let's talk about funds and closing and how that goes too. We need to know, because it's very important for my buyers to know what to do, and my sellers, of course, knowing how they're supposed to get funded. And I'm losing my voice. How they're supposed to get funded after closing.
Right. The first thing I think that we do now, welcome to technology, because I love technology.
Yeah.
We use the Earnest app, so they can send earnest money automatically. They just get a request, they go in it. It's very much like Cash App, Venmo, or Zelle, and goes right into our trust account. Now, some people are old school and they want to write a check, and we're fine with that too.
Right.
But an easy way for you to get your earnest money in and get it immediate is through Earnest app. Now, most buyers want to know, how much am I bringing to closing?
Yeah. Let's not look outside and start barking in this one.
They sometimes don't understand. So there's something called the Good Funds Law. And basically it says that all money that goes into an escrow account has to be guaranteed funds.
Right.
So what are those? What is guaranteed funds? The only true way is guaranteed funds is by wire.
Right.
Now we take a personal check up to $1,000. Anything over $1,000.
Someone's breathing heavy over here.
Right. Anything over $1,000 has to be in a cashier's check. Up to, some title companies do 5, we do 10. So 1,000 to 10,000 can be a cashier's check. Anything over 10,000 has to be done in a wire. And one of the things that we do, because wire fraud is so rampant, is we, in the beginning of the transaction, send you wiring instructions. And you'll never get different wiring instructions. And you should always call your title company, the one you Googled, not off the email that you got from someone, and verify those wiring instructions. I always suggest you even go into your bank and have the banker send the wire, so that that's a second person verifying the wiring instructions.
Very important.
Right. So sometimes they get the closing number from us. If they have a lender involved, they'll get the closing number from the lender. Mm-hmm. But we should be the only person sending wiring instructions. I tell all of my agents and all of my lenders, because once a lender or agent sends wiring instructions, it opens them up to that liability.
Yeah.
So I always suggest that realtors don't send it. Rely on the title company to send that for you.
Yeah, I don't want to send that.
Yeah.
We stay in our lane.
Right.
You that's what you do.
Well, we all have specialty. And then
although I do know about it, and I have to tell them, and my clients know that I'm their concierge for life.
Yeah.
And they can call me after, before, during. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Yeah. So. No, I come across last week a gentleman that said, I just don't understand why you will not take my check for $200,000. And he was very serious
about that.
Right. He was, he was older, and that's why he had always done business. And he says, well, my title company that I use all the time does that. And just like anything else,
he has a relationship with that title company, and maybe they did do that for him. Maybe they you know.
Well,
and maybe it's a long time ago and they've changed their policy.
That's what I was fixing to say. You know, I can't control whether or not somebody else follows federal guidelines.
Right.
And that's what I had to explain to him, that maybe they did do that because maybe they know him, but they're not doing best practices. Best practices are make sure that that money is guaranteed,
Right.
and then there's not a problem down the road.
Right. Did he understand that after?
He did not. When
I was going to say, probably not.
You know, because you know me, I'm so service oriented. I literally let him write me a check, got up from my office, went to the bank, which was a half a block from me.
Yeah.
And converted it to at least a cashier's check so I wouldn't get in trouble with my underwriter because,
Right.
you know, I was taking in a check that I wasn't supposed to, because we get audited by our underwriters once a year.
Yeah.
And if they see you doing those things, you know,
Not a good thing.
Yeah, they write you up, and they can, you know, after so many write-ups, terminate you. I've never been in that position,
Yeah,
but
thank God, no.
because I don't allow those things.
Right.
But we get those questions all the time of, you know, how do I do this? How do I do that? But that's the number one thing is personal check up to $1,000. We take a cashier's check up to $10,000, and anything over $10,000 has to be done in a wire, and 2 and 3 times check wiring instructions before you send them.
Because anybody can spoof emails and
Right.
send you wired instruction, and
Right.
it's not going to their.
Right. The number one thing in title insurance and every underwriter and anybody I know that has been focused on is cybercrime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, how to get people have always spent years trying to get to the escrow money, but with cybercrime, and especially in the last week, which you may not be aware, but Mr. Cooper, the nationwide lender, was hijacked. They were shut down, literally frozen for 10 days because their system had been hijacked. Right. First American, a national underwriter, last week, they're currently shut down just from being hijacked.
Yeah.
So always, you know, not to scare you, but to scare you, double check, you know, wiring instructions. You check it, have your banker check it.
We have a lot going on at our home today, contractors and stuff doing encapsulation of our crawl space. So lots going on, and the fur babies are like, oh, I gotta go bark and get my treats, you know.
Right.
Although we're up here and they don't.
They're like, I'm protected now. Give me my treats.
I know, right?
The next thing I think should be talked about is sellers and their money.
Okay.
Because you'll notice when I close your sellers, I always say you'll have your money within 24 hours.
Right.
And most people,
and they want to know, like they're like, I don't get a check right now. No, no, ma'am, or no, sir. That's not the way it works yet.
They are very shocked about how real estate works now.
But they want their money. I get it.
Because if they bought a house even 20 years ago, they probably left closing with a check.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
But now, with the federal guidelines and things, and especially if there's a lender involved. We have to send things up to the lender. They have to approve everything, and then once they've approved everything, then they send us the wire to fund. So funding takes a little longer than it used to. Most time it's the same day. If you close in the morning,
most of the time mine say it's by the afternoon, and they're not usually worried about it once we explain it to them at closing about what happens too.
And some still want to check.
I know.
That's amazing to me, and that's fine. They can have a check,
but their bank's going to probably hold that check.
That's what I was about to say.
A long time.
A lot of them are. I give them the check, and then they're mad. They call me mad because the bank held the check, and they're like, they held your check.
So at that time, instead of depositing it, can't they come back to you and say, here, can you just take this back and just wire it?
Okay, I have to have the original check back in order to do that, but I can do it. We always encourage wiring to sellers just because once that goes into your account, that's guaranteed funds.
Right, you can use it right then.
Right, you can spend it.
Yeah, they want to do
the
that.
The other thing that we do is a lot of times when people are selling a house, they're buying a house somewhere else.
Right.
So we let them sign a statement at closing allowing us to wire the money to a different title company, or if they're closing their purchase with me, to apply it to a different property.
Right.
So that's I think the biggest things that sellers ask is where's my money? How do I get my money? When do I get my money?
Right.
Which is what we all want to know. We all want to be shown the money.
Right. And on the buy side, buyers though, when they close, they don't know anything exists after that. They've bought a house, and then they think, can I get into the house right then?
Right.
And it's closed. Most of the time, yes, they're going to get in the house and stuff. Some sellers are very particular.
Some sellers are very particular.
Are like, no, you're not coming in until. But I mean, when closing happens on both sides, closings actually happen.
That's correct. You get into a very legal, and you've had that in the past.
I know.
You get into a very legal argument of
Sheldon, come here, baby.
Who owns it at that point, because your contract says, that funds are to be delivered.
Yeah. Come here, Stewie.
And
over here.
Title contracts, if you actually read them, it says that, you can deliver seller's funds by check, wire. You got the option of how you can deliver seller's funds.
Right.
But with your particular transaction, it had closed. There was a waiting because of something else that had transpired.
Mm-hmm. Every transaction's different.
Every transaction is different. That's that's actually one of the things I love about real estate.
I do too. That's what I say all the time. Every day's different. Every person's different. Every situation's different. Every sale is different.
Yeah.
So you get to experience a lot of different things. It's not the same. Never.
Yeah.
Never. And you might think you knew it all, and then you learn something new.
Right. But yeah, it's, once it's closed, the buyer technically does own it, but I always suggest for sellers to not let the buyer take possession. That's just my suggestion.
Yeah.
Don't let them take possession until you have the funds, or at least your title company has the funds and it's on its way.
Yeah.
As I said,
most of mine are probably not that bad anyway. Even on the buy side, the seller on the other side lets them
for the most part.
People are really good about getting along, and they know that it's going to happen, especially if they've sold before. And even on my listing side, most of my sellers are like, I don't care whatever time they come in.
The only ones I know that are real hardcore are builders.
Yeah.
Builders absolutely do not want the buyer moving in until they have their money in their account.
Yeah, so trucks are waiting sometimes, and they have to wait, and then if it don't happen until the next day, then they have to go find somewhere to stay.
Yeah.
Unless they do an early occupancy, and you're not going to see a builder do that.
No. Builders are very, and you can't.
I did have a builder a long time ago up in Portland.
Some do.
And he's a small builder. He did that. My people moved in, I think, 2 weeks beforehand.
Yeah.
Their lending was different, and then we had to change lenders and everything, and they got in the house, and it all worked out.
I think that runs the difference between if you're, there's goods and bad things of dealing with small companies or small businesses or, small builders, because, they're able to make those judgment calls just like Ebel Law, because we're not a small title company. We're actually pretty big for what we are. But we're able still to make those personal decisions where some of the bigger named in the area can't, because they,
stringent rules on their stuff too.
Right, they have to be, because it becomes a process of this is how you do something, and you say no to these things because it might cause this. Right. Whereas, you can step back and look at it and go, okay, what's the real liability here? Right. So a smaller builder may go, do you, call the title company and go, do you have all the funds? And we say, yes, we have all the funds.
Yeah,
and
they
say,
understand, and they're fine.
Whereas, some don't want to name a big builder.
No,
on
we're
a
not going to
podcast,
name names today.
A nationwide builder. It's against their policies, their
Right.
company policies, and they're just like, this is the way.
But
it
as
is.
long as us agents know that on how
On the
it's going to
front
be
end.
done on the front end, we
Yeah.
can educate our clients to know that, hey, this is the way it's going to be.
I always say this to people is close in the morning and actually close at the first of the month.
Yeah.
Everybody always wants to close at the end of the month, but you're actually better off closing like the first or second day of the month. It's not as busy. It doesn't get crammed through, because when you're crammed through, there's an opportunity to make more mistakes. But not only that, but you get an interest credit, because they're usually doing it because, the interest is about to start, but you get from the lender, you get like a 1 day credit. And it's only 1 day, but it makes the world a difference if you focused of getting your stuff closed at the first of the month rather than the end. I think it changes the game entirely.
Because I try not to ever have mine close at the very last day of the month if it's in a weekday.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you have to. But if it can be 5 days ahead of time, then that's better. It's not so bad on everybody. Or the first or second day of the month, the first part of the next month, which in turn helps the client. So if they closed in January 2nd instead of December 31st, their first payment's not going to be till March 1st.
Possibly, depending on how they want to set it.
Well,
It could be.
But if it's December 31st, it may still be February 1st that they have their payment. So it just depends on that
If
part.
if you close January, say 1st or 2nd, they could still fix that
Sometimes
February
they do.
payment and get
Sometimes-
that interest credit, or they could even push it out one more month.
Right.
Which is always a good thing. But the reason I say always do are first in the morning and
Always, it's better
first
to
of the
do
month
in the morning.
if possible, because early in the morning you'll make sure it gets funded that day.
Mm-hmm.
If it's the first of the month, there's not all these people in line, trying to just get in line.
Get it all done at the end of the month.
At the end
like
of the month.
that's
I think you get better customer service, in my opinion.
Right. And everybody gets funded and
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah, everybody wants their money.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
The buyers, they want to move in.
They want to
And
move
then you
in,
got the
possession.
sellers that just want their money and move on, and they might be waiting to leave town or something. You just never know.
Yeah, my goal, and I'm sure everybody is this way, is to get the buyer closed, get the seller closed, get everybody their money, get everything dispersed so that the buyer moves in, the seller's able to close on something else, and everybody's happy that day.
Right. We want everybody to be happy on closing day.
That's the number one goal, is to get buyers in homes and get sellers their money.
Right. And then everybody's happy.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you do have sometimes where, the buyers and sellers don't really like each other, so, us agents have to work that out with them
Sometimes that
too.
does happen. For the most part, if everybody does the stuff through their agents like they're supposed to, I think it works better than sometimes.
Yeah,
certain
and I
clients
think
try to go around the agent and they end up muddying the waters.
Right.
Which the reason you have an agent is for your legal representation. They represent your best interest.
Always.
The reason you close with your own title company instead of the one somebody else suggested for you is because they have your best interest.
Yeah.
Like the reason you and I work together is, even though you've had builders say, no, I want to close at XYZ, you're like, no, I want to close here because I know that she's going to represent my best interest rather than the person who's trying to drive you their's best interest.
Right. I know that you have my client's best interest at all times. And and some clients want to come to Nashville to close or wherever. They might not be near Hendersonville to close at my office. Some love my home. They love to come here because they love my family and my fur babies, and they just love, and they're in Portland. So I have a lot of clients that love to come to my house.
Where we live, there are a couple title companies here. They're great, great companies, but there's not, like a lot of places, I can just rent an office suites or whatever to close in. And Portland, come on, we're still a small town.
We're a small town.
I'm not renting a place to
No.
close at, and I'm sure as some people watch this, they're going to go, well, Delaney, you can close here and you can close there. Yes, I have tons of banking relationships here. I could walk into banks here and say, hey, can I use your closing room? And they would let me.
Yeah, but usually I just pick where we close anyway.
Well,
my
your
clients
house is so
kind of
nice. I mean, this place is so nice.
Thank you.
Audra, I come over here all the time, but I refuse to let Audra in my house because I have $5.
We drive by and wave at her.
Yes, you do not stop.
We pass your house every time we leave. Hey, Delana.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that would be the only thing, I would like to tell buyers is double check those wiring instructions.
Always.
Take it to a bank. Have the bank check the wiring
instructions. They usually call me and text me all the time.
Yes.
And because my clients, like I said, know that I'm there for them. So even over their lenders, they contact me.
Yeah.
So, but I'm used to that. And then I try to answer them or get them to the right person or, get what the answer they need for everything.
And for sellers, just be informative so that they understand that, hey, you're probably going to sign documents and not walk away with funds. It's possible.
Right. And that's where I come into play. I've got to educate them on everything, too.
Yeah.
So, and I have buyer's consultation, so I go through everything before we ever start the process of buying. And then I have listing consultation, so I go over everything I can in the listing
but you're
consultation.
You're so detail oriented, and a lot of agents are not like that.
Right.
So they have transaction coordinators that do it or whatnot, but you're so good about educating your clients.
Well,
and that's one of the things that on the title end we can tell the difference. It's a major difference than when somebody doesn't they're not detail oriented, and that's okay. That's what they have us for. Or they don't have a transaction coordinator or those things. We can tell.
Right.
We can honestly tell. The way the closing goes is very different.
Right.
So thank you for that. Thank you for always trying to educate your clients and make sure that their best interest is protected.
Yeah, that's what I strive to do all the time. So Stewie and Sheldon help me do that too.
Right.
Because I get to love on them too in the home office. But
right.
Yeah. So do you think that's about all to do?
I think that pretty covers.
That subject
I think
today?
that covers the funds transaction. Funds portion of a closing.
Okay. Well, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe and share with your family and friends. Until next time, Stewie and Sheldon say, we'll see you later. Bye. He's looking.